Hello everyone, this is Dylan Stevens again, certified strength and conditioning specialist. Today I will be discussing what the best diet for fat loss is. Now this is a fairly simple explanation, but people tend to complicate it. There are a few things to consider, so let's just get right into it. So the first thing to think about when you're trying to lose weight is how many calories you're burning per day. The first thing to consider is your basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of calories you burn every day if you were to just lay down in bed for 24 hours straight. Typically, this is around 2,000 calories for the average American nowadays, but there are calculators that you can access online where you can put in your height and your weight, your body fat percentage, and it'll give you a rough estimation of how many calories you burn a day if you were to just lay in bed for 24 hours straight. So this number that you're going to get from the calculator isn't always 100% accurate. You're going to have to give it 200 calories or so above or below the number that you get from the calculator. After you figure out this number, you're going to have to figure out how many calories you burn from daily activity and exercise. Typically, this is going to be about 500 to 1,000 calories, depending on the type of exercise you're doing and how active your lifestyle is. In one of these calculators, you can actually input your daily activity and it will multiply this BMR, basal metabolic rate, by however many calories extra you're burning through physical activity. So you can utilize that as well. A huge issue people are going to have is overestimating the amount of calories they burn when they exercise. So when you walk on a treadmill for 25-30 minutes, the little calorie counter that tells you how many calories you burned is almost always wrong. Sometimes it'll overestimate, sometimes it'll underestimate, but it's going to depend on your weight, the speed, your muscle mass. There's a lot of factors that go into it, and that number is not usually right. So once you determine the amount of calories you burn as a rough estimate, you're going to have to determine how many calories you take in. So if you want to lose 1 pound of fat every week, you have to eat 500 calories less than you burn every single day. So in 1 pound of fat, there is about 3,500 calories. 500 calories a day deficit times 7 is 3,500 calories. If you want to be really extreme, you can go in a 1,000 calorie deficit, and that'll be about 2 pounds of fat a week. But that's usually not sustainable, and you're going to be very hungry and irritable and in a bad mood, and you're going to be fatigued. So 500 calorie day deficit is typically the golden number for weight loss. So after you've done all the calculations and you've determined a rough estimate of how many calories you burn per day, you subtract that number by 500 if you want to lose a pound of fat a week, and you get your daily calorie allowance for how many calories you're allowed to eat per day. The next step is to determine how many grams of protein you should be eating per day. This number is typically around 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight. This is the lower end of things if you really want to gain muscle and be less hungry, as protein decreases hunger. This can be increased to about 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. You determine protein first because protein is the most important macronutrient in terms of weight loss, muscle gain, satiety. So you determine your protein intake in grams. You multiply that by 4 to get your daily calories of coming from protein. So you've gotten your total amount of calories burned per day. You subtracted that by 500, and then you subtract that by the amount of protein you eat times 4 to get the total calories from protein. And the rest of those calories can be consumed in either protein or in either fat or carbohydrates. So this is completely up to you. You can either eat 50-50, half protein or half carbs, half fat. You can eat all fat if you want to go keto. You could do all carbs if you want to go low fat, but this is where the weight loss diet really comes down to your own personal preferences. Fat is gonna keep hunger at bay a little bit better than carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are gonna spike your insulin, and what insulin does is tell your body to start hoarding calories and to start pulling carbohydrates and protein into the cells. So this is like more of a weight gaining hormone that gets released. Insulin is a weight gaining hormone. So it's best to strategically consume your carbohydrates. It's really easy to overeat carbs, and this is really where people sometimes go wrong in their weight loss program, is they get a little bit carried away with the carbs. So carbs are not bad. Fat is not bad. Protein is number one. Once you get that out of the way, it's about determining what works best for your biology and your anatomy and your digestive system and how you want to feel. Protein, fat, or carbohydrates and fat have different properties. They have different pros and cons, and experiment with that. But at the end of the day, it's about eating less than you're burning. You have to be in a 500 calorie a day deficit if you want to lose a pound of fat a week. So what if you're not losing a pound of fat a week? You're either overestimating the amount of calories you're burning, or you're underestimating the amount of calories you're consuming. So this is when you really have to start to analyze how many calories you're burning and how many calories you're eating. In very rare cases will you have some sort of thyroid issue or hormone issue where you can't lose weight. I mean, if you don't eat for a week straight, you're going to lose weight. If you don't eat for a month straight, you're going to lose 10 pounds at least. So people make excuses of hormone issues and all this and that, and I can't lose fat. But at the end of the day, you have to burn more than you consume. So that's about it for this weight loss diet guide. I mean, it's really not that complicated as long as you have accurate estimates, somewhat accurate estimates of the amount of calories you're eating, amount of calories you're burning, and then taking care of your protein first and foremost, and then fat carbohydrate ratio is up to you. Once you have all those bases covered, you should start to see results. If you do not see results, you're making a mistake somewhere, and you're going to have to go a little bit deeper and analyze your calories burned, calories consumed.